What is up, everybody? Welcome into Saturday with Smoltz, where every single Saturday, the Hall of Famer of the Atlanta Braves joins me here on Flippin Bats. Today, we got a lot of good stuff to talk about. The playoffs are days away, right around the corner. Going to talk to him about what teams he thinks could go on a surprise run in the playoffs, and it wouldn't shock him if they got to the World Series. Also, something that's been on my mind a lot lately, playoff reseeding. The way it's all set up, you know who's going to play who, and if you win, you advance in who you're going to play. But sometimes that doesn't work out very well for the highest seed. Sometimes the one seed runs into, by far, the best team in the next round. So asking John Smoltz what he thinks about playoff reseeding, if it's something that we should do, if he would like seeing it, or any changes at all he'd like with the format. And lastly, the season's coming to a close. Full picture question: what team surprised you the most in a good way, and what team surprised you the most in a bad way? This conversation is a lot of fun. Last one of the regular season with John Smoltz. So without further ado, let's welcome him in now.
Fly ball onto the track, at the wall, it's gone! Home run!
Turns on a ball, deep right field, and gone!
What a game, what a moment. All right, and I am pumped to welcome in now John Smoltz. And John, you are looking great today, all dressed up, looking good.
Yeah, got a little function we're going to take part in after this. Private golf club here in Long Island. Weather's not great, but the atmosphere in the golf course, fantastic.
I love that. Well, let's get started then. We're right around the corner from the playoffs, starting in just a couple days. And the playoff picture is pretty much taken shape. There's a couple things that could change still, but for the majority of, we know the teams that are going to be in there. And I want to ask, aside from the teams that are the juggernauts of the league right now, the ones in the 2 seed, the Braves, the Dodgers, on the American League side, the Orioles, though they might be a bit more of a surprise, but who are some of the teams that we're going to see in the playoffs that you would not be surprised if they went on a long run and potentially got to the World Series?
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting dynamic when you get the matchups. The 3 out of 5 are, to me, essential to what sets up a club for a deep run. And like I said to you last time, I don't think that we're going to see too many teams in that first round over the course of time go to the World Series. We'll see a handful. It is stacked up against them a little bit. But, let's just say the Diamondbacks make it, and a team like that can be scary. The Philadelphia Phillies are by far the scariest playoff team right now that is not a number 1 or number 2 seed. They have experience. They've been there, done that. They have everything that you could possibly want and more for a team that didn't get the bye. The reason I say the Diamondbacks are scary because they don't necessarily have to shut you down in the offensive realm from the pitching. They're going to create chaos on the bases. To me, if I'm a team like that, I play so reckless. I make it difficult to play the Arizona Diamondbacks. In the other league, it's going to be a scary scenario for one of those really good teams isn't going to make it. And it looks like you could have Houston might not make it, or Seattle. It's going to come down to the wire. This American League is going to be very, very competitive. All the teams are really, really stacked together. And with the exception of right now, Baltimore and Tampa, I think you got some intriguing matchups coming up.
So we definitely, with the new playoff format that we just got to, and it's fun, it's exciting. The playoffs are a lot of fun, and we saw that last year. And a wild card team, since we've gotten wild card teams, has had the potential to go a distance in the playoffs. But what I want to ask about, and something I've kind of been thinking about over the last few weeks, is the seeding in playoffs. And we see it in other sports. When you advance, the higher seed plays the lowest remaining seed. But in baseball, it's pretty much all scheduled out, right? The 2 seed is going to get, the winner of the 3 and 6 matchup, or whatever it may be. But do you think playoff reseeding should be a thing in baseball? Because sometimes I feel like the 2 seed, at least in that DS round, has an advantage on who they play over the 1 seed.
Absolutely. I think we're going to see another scenario that needs to be fixed, and that's going to be the best 2 teams in the league potentially could face each other again right away. And that's going to be something that reseeding should take a look at. You know, you got the Rays and the Orioles. It was similar to the Giants and the Dodgers, two teams that won over 100 games and then faced each other right away. So I'm in favor of the reseeding. I think you got to get this totally married up with the success of the teams that are records and positioning, because, you know, I know why they're doing it the way they're doing it. It's just cleaner and everybody kind of knows where and what, but baseball can handle the reseeding. And I think that's something that's going to come down the pipe. You might have to have a certain team get upset for that to be enacted right away.
Well, I think if we see 2 years in a row, and I don't think it would be an upset, because I think this team, I think the Phillies are one of the best teams in baseball heading into the playoffs, but we could see 2 years in a row where the Atlanta Braves run into the Phillies as the top wild card seed, or this year, the top wild card seed. And I think the Braves are the best team in baseball, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Phillies beat them. They're that good. Whereas that's just how the playoff seeding is going to shape out for them. If the Phillies end up the 4 seed and they beat the 5 seed, they go on to play the 1 seed. And we could see again, the Phillies taking out the best team in baseball. And I just think if we reseed, and I don't know how you do it though. Like, for example, in both leagues, the Central Division winner is probably the weaker of the opponents they're the weaker division winners. Would you go based off of record? Would you automatically give them the 3 seed as a benefit for winning the division? How would you go about the reseeding exactly?
I think the reseeding needs to take place after the first series are done. And that means the division has to be a priority. Even if it's a bad division, you have to get the priority for winning your division. That's what you're called to do. Otherwise, in the future, we're going to have 2 leagues with just an equal amount of teams, right? You get to that 32 number and you got 16 and 16, and then it's all about record, and then you can truly do the seeding. But in this case, I think if a 6 seed were to win, it really should go to the number 1 seed and the reseeding side of that. But, you know, they're going to flush these things out. I love the playoff system the way it is. I've always been an advocate for rewarding the best team. You've got to give them an advantage. And here's what's going to happen in the future. When it stays this way, teams are going to learn, like I told you before, they're going to learn how to deal with the rest. Because the number one minefield that you have to deal with in your mind is, what are we going to do with 6 days off? And how do we replicate baseball in 6 days off? Well, the benefit of that is you're facing a team that had to burn and churn through a series. And those 2 guys and those 3 starters become less relevant than they were if you had to play them with the same kind of rest.
Absolutely. We got a couple days left before playoffs start. This is our last regular season conversation of the year, which is crazy to think about. So a bigger full picture question here. This season, what team would you say surprised you the most in a good way?
Well, there's a couple. I did not see the Chicago Cubs getting to this point. Cincinnati Reds, it's really been in the National League. There's been some real surprises with the Diamondbacks, the Cubs, and you know, when you think about the Cincinnati Reds, it's a great story building on their season for next year. A lot of excitement, but the Cubs really surprised me, and I don't know that they had this in mind. One will never know. Like, I think clubs leave spring training and they go, look, we're a year or 2 away. Okay, here's how we're going to build this. Here's how we're going to get to relevancy. And then all of a sudden they find themselves, oh, shoot, we're here. Now what? Do we make moves? How do we navigate this? How do we keep our fan base, you know, engaged that we're trying to go for it? So those kind of faster than expected seasons are exciting for me as a player. When you see that, we certainly did that in 91, and you saw the rest and what happened after that.
What about on the opposite side of things? I feel like we got a lot of surprise teams that were supposed to be good that weren't this year. But who of them all? You have the high payroll, no playoff teams. You have the Yankees who are missing out on the playoffs officially. So who surprised you the most in the opposite direction?
Yeah, we could spend a long time on this list. But see, this is a byproduct of maybe your roster not being ready for the rule changes. And, you know, what comes to mind right away is I can't believe San Diego was not in a better position than they are. I mean, they made a late run. and they started seeing the signs of it. But San Diego with their roster and just didn't seem like the continuity, whatever it was, wasn't working. And the big boys, I mean, in the National League, St. Louis, there was so much expected out of St. Louis that to have their first losing season in a long time is shocking. And then, of course, in the American League, New York, we can go Boston. I don't think Boston as much as New York, because this team was built to win a world championship. And it might have been built to win a world championship under the old rules. And now they're realizing, I think, what that roster needs to improve and how they got to get more athletic, because their pitching staff was certainly good enough, in my minds, minus some injuries, to go all the way. So the New York Yankees are always going to be on the list of when they don't do something that they're bred and born to do. So you got to give them the nod as probably one of the most disappointing years, because they had such high expectation.
Yeah, first time since 1995 the playoffs will not include either the Red Sox or the Yankees. John, thank you, my friend. Have fun at the banquet, and regular season's coming to an end. We'll talk playoffs soon.
Can't wait.
All right, see ya. All right, thanks again to John Smoltz for joining me. Always a really fun conversation. I agree with him, and it's also a bit of a surprise, but a team that does not get mentioned a lot this year, the St. Louis Cardinals. A lot of expectations. Really a bad year for them, and I feel like everybody's mostly talking about Padres, Yankees, Mets, but agree with him there, and agree about playoff reseeding. I like the playoff setup. I love it a lot. I love the format, but I just think there could be a way to tweak who that second round matchups are against and adjust there. But always a really fun conversation. The playoffs are just days away, my friends. John Smoltz will continue to do Saturday with Smoltz throughout the playoffs, and we'll keep talking to him. So be on the lookout for that. But thank you all for listening to this edition of Saturday with Smoltz. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever. We're also on all social media, including YouTube at Flippin Bats Pod for all of them. But that does it. Enjoy the weekend, everyone. Until next time, peace.